Malcolm Whitaker was 43 years old, and most mornings in Charlotte began the same way for him, before sunrise, before the neighborhood sprinklers clicked on, before Serena's side of the bed had even cooled from sleep. He would stand in the kitchen in a faded gray t-shirt, grind coffee by hand, pack a lunch he usually forgot to eat, and check the weather on the small radio near the window while the house still held its quiet. He ran a modest freight office on the west side, or at least that was how people described it when they thought they understood him. A few loading docks, a cracked parking lot, a blue pickup with a dent above the rear tire, men in reflective vests calling him Mal, like he was just another steady boss trying to keep trucks moving and invoices paid. Malcolm liked that version of himself because it did not ask anything from anyone. It let him see people clearly. He paid his employees before he paid himself, remembered birthdays, covered a driver's daughter's emergency dental bill without making a speech about it, and still stopped every Thursday at the same diner where the waitress poured his black coffee before he sat down. To strangers, that made him humble. To Serena, lately, it seemed to make him small. Their marriage had not broken loudly at first. It had thinned. A missed dinner here. A turned shoulder there. Her laughter drifting from the living room during calls she ended the moment he walked in. Expensive perfume lingering in the hallway after she said she was only going to a board mixer. A new gold bracelet on her wrist that he had not bought, catching the kitchen light while she scrolled through her phone with the screen tilted away from him. Malcolm noticed all of it. He had always noticed details. The way Serena stopped asking about his day. The way she said, "Your little freight yard," when her friends were around. The way her eyes moved over his work boots as if they embarrassed her. Still, he did not raise his voice. He fixed the loose cabinet hinge. He changed the porch bulb. He carried groceries in from her car when she left them by the door. Patience had been mistaken for weakness before, and Malcolm had learned not to correct people too early. That Tuesday night, rain tapped against the tall kitchen windows while the dishwasher hummed behind him. Serena came downstairs dressed in a cream silk blouse and dark slacks, her hair pinned back, her perfume sharp and expensive in the warm room. She did not look surprised to find him at the marble island with 2 plates set out, salmon cooling beside roasted asparagus, her wine already poured into the glass she liked. She looked almost annoyed by it. "I'm not hungry," she said, setting her phone face down beside the fruit bowl. Malcolm's eyes went to the phone for less than a second. The screen glowed once before going dark. He saw only the beginning of a name before the notification vanished. Derek. Something felt wrong. Not new wrong. Confirmed wrong. Serena opened the leather folder she had carried under one arm and slid a stack of papers across the counter. The sound was soft, but in the quiet kitchen it landed like a door closing somewhere deep inside the house. Malcolm looked down. Divorce papers. Clean pages. White margins. A yellow signature tab already placed near the bottom. For a moment, the rain seemed louder than everything else. Serena folded her arms and gave a small laugh, not nervous, not sad, just light and polished, the same laugh she used at charity dinners when someone made a joke she did not respect. "I think we both knew this was coming," she said. Malcolm did not touch the papers yet. He looked at the wedding photo on the wall behind her, the one from 12 years earlier, Serena's smile bright under a veil, his hand resting carefully at her waist like he had been afraid to damage something precious. Then he looked back at the woman in front of him, at the bracelet, at the phone, at the glass of untouched wine. The detail did not match. "Did your lawyer prepare these?" he asked. His voice came out calm enough that even he noticed it. Serena's mouth curved. "Malcolm, please. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You're a good man, but you were never built for the life I want." He stayed silent. The sentence did not break him the way she may have expected. It settled. It joined the others. Your little freight yard. Safe. Predictable. Not enough. Before we go deeper into what Malcolm discovered that night, tell us where you're watching from and do not forget to subscribe. because what happened next changed everything. He reached for the papers slowly, not to sign, not yet, but to read. Serena shifted her weight, impatient. Her phone lit up again. This time, the name stayed on the screen long enough for Malcolm to see the full message preview from Derek Langston. Once he signs, call me. The office lease depends on this. Malcolm's fingers stopped on the first page. He did not look up. He did not accuse her. He simply noticed the word office, the word lease, and the way Serena's hand moved too quickly to turn the phone over. Everything changed after that moment. 72 hours before Serena slid those papers across the marble island, Malcolm Whitaker had been standing beneath the pale fluorescent lights of Bay 4, watching a forklift driver try to back a damaged pallet between two stacks of refrigerated freight. It was 6:18 in the morning, cold enough that his breath showed faintly when the loading dock doors opened, and the whole yard smelled of diesel, wet asphalt, and coffee from the break room. Malcolm wore his same navy work jacket with the frayed cuff, the one Serena had once said made him look like he had given up on being impressive. He had not corrected her. Out here, impressive did not move freight on time. Accurate did. Calm did. Knowing which driver had a sick mother in Greensboro, which dispatcher needed a second chance, and which account could not afford another late delivery did. Cut it left, Andre, Malcolm called, his voice steady, one hand raised. Do not rush it. You have got space. Andre eased the forklift back 2 inches, then 4, and the pallet settled cleanly into place. The young man looked over with a relieved grin. Malcolm gave him a nod and turned toward the office before anyone could make it bigger than it was. That was how he moved through most days, quietly fixing things before they became problems. Inside the office, the heater rattled like loose change in a dryer. Dale from routing had left a stack of invoices on Malcolm's desk beside a paper cup of black coffee and a note that said the Wilmington account was nervous again. Malcolm sat, opened the folder, and went line by line with a pen, circling 2 numbers that did not match. The work looked small from the outside. Trucks in, trucks out. Bills paid. Fuel costs managed. Serena saw the cracked pavement and the dented vending machine and believed she had seen the whole picture. Malcolm had let her. There was peace in being underestimated, at least until the person doing it began to use that mistake as a weapon. At 9:42, his cell phone buzzed with a number saved under no company name, only initials. He glanced toward the open office door, then stepped into the narrow hallway beside the supply closet where the security monitor showed 4 camera angles of the yard. Whitaker, he answered. The voice on the other end was careful and formal. The Singapore call moved to noon Eastern, Chairman. Naomi said the board packet is ready. Malcolm closed his eyes for half a second, not from surprise, but from the quiet weight of 2 lives touching at the seam. Through the small interior window, he could see Dale arguing gently with a driver about a route change, a coffee stain spreading across a delivery manifest, the old wall clock 5 minutes slow. Send it encrypted, Malcolm said. And tell Naomi I want the port projections separated from the real estate holdings. No overlap on the summary page. Yes, sir. He ended the call and stood there a moment longer, listening to the warehouse breathe around him. Then he returned to his desk and picked up the invoice folder as if nothing had happened. By lunch, rain had started tapping against the office windows. Malcolm drove his blue pickup to Evelyn's Diner, 3 miles from the yard, and parked beside a plumbing van with a ladder strapped to the roof. The bell over the door gave its tired little ring when he walked in. Same thing, Mal? Rhonda asked from behind the counter. Same thing, he said. Turkey melt, no onions, coffee black. He took the corner booth where the vinyl seat had split along the edge, the one Serena refused to sit in the last time he brought her there. He remembered the way she had looked around the diner that day, her smile tight, her sunglasses still on though they were indoors. You really like places like this, she had said, not quite a question. Malcolm had said yes because it was true. He liked places where people did not perform wealth for one another. He liked coffee cups with chips in them, waitresses who called everyone honey, and men in work boots counting cash before ordering lunch. His phone buzzed while Rhonda refilled his cup. A text from Serena. Dinner tonight. Do not be late. No heart. No explanation. He read it twice, then set the phone face down beside the napkin dispenser. Something about the message felt less like an invitation than a notice. Across the diner window, his reflection looked back at him, broad shoulders in a plain jacket, a tired face, a man most people would pass without wondering what rooms he could enter with one phone call. Malcolm took a slow sip of coffee and watched rain thread down the glass. He did not know yet what Serena had already prepared, but he could feel the air changing. Small details had started lining up in the wrong direction, and by the time he returned to the freight yard, one more was waiting on his desk, a cream-colored envelope from a downtown law firm he had never hired, addressed to Serena Whitaker, opened once, then sealed again badly enough that the corner would not stay flat. Malcolm did not open the envelope at the freight yard. He placed it flat inside his leather work bag, beneath the invoice folder, and finished the afternoon the same way he finished every day, one decision at a time. A late truck out of Raleigh needed a different dock. A driver with a sick child needed to leave early. A client in Savannah wanted reassurance that their shipment would still arrive before noon. Malcolm gave each problem the attention it deserved, but the cream-colored envelope stayed in his mind like a light left on in an empty room. By 6:40, the rain had softened into a mist, and the city lights blurred across the windshield as he drove home through neighborhoods that changed block by block. Corner stores became coffee shops. Small brick houses became renovated townhomes. Then came the quiet street Serena preferred, with trimmed hedges, stone mailboxes, and porch lanterns glowing like every house had been arranged for a magazine. Their home sat near the end of the cul-de-sac, 2 stories of pale brick and tall windows, beautiful in the careful way Serena liked things to be beautiful. Malcolm parked his pickup in the driveway instead of the garage because Serena had once said the oil smell followed it inside. He sat for a moment with both hands on the wheel. Through the front window, he could see her moving across the living room in a fitted black dress, phone pressed to her ear, one hand lifting as she spoke. She looked elegant, composed, lit by the warm glow of the floor lamp beside the white sofa they almost never used. He could not hear her words from the truck, but he knew the shape of that version of her. It was the voice she used when she wanted to sound like she belonged somewhere more exclusive than where she was. Inside, the house smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and expensive perfume. The television was muted on a financial news channel Serena did not usually watch unless guests were coming. On the kitchen island, beside a half-empty wine glass, lay a glossy invitation to a private foundation dinner downtown. Malcolm recognized the hotel name embossed across the top in silver. Serena had circled the sponsor list in blue ink. Not the date. Not the time. The names. He hung his jacket on the chair and noticed 3 shopping bags tucked near the hallway, their handles twisted together, labels facing inward. "You are late," Serena said, ending her call as if the person on the other end had disappeared the moment Malcolm entered. 6 minutes, Malcolm said. He did not say it to correct her. He said it because accuracy mattered to him. Serena gave a small smile that did not reach her eyes. "That is exactly what I mean." The sentence was quiet, but it carried weight. Malcolm looked at her, waiting. She moved to the island, picked up the invitation, and tapped one manicured nail against the sponsor list. "Do you know who is going to be in that room Friday night? Real investors. Real founders. People who understand scale." He glanced at the names. Some he knew. Some owed him money. One had spent 3 months trying to get a meeting with Naomi Brooks and never made it past the second assistant. Malcolm said nothing about that. He only set his keys in the small ceramic bowl near the sink. Serena watched the gesture, then looked at his boots, still dark at the edges from the wet pavement outside the freight yard. "You could at least try to look like you want more," she said. There it was again. More. The word had become a hallway she kept trying to push him down. More visible. More polished. More useful in the rooms she wanted to enter. Malcolm remembered the first apartment they had shared, a one-bedroom above a barber shop, where Serena used to fall asleep on his shoulder while he balanced accounts at the kitchen table. Back then, she had called his steadiness a gift. Now she treated it like a defect. The washing machine hummed from the laundry room. Rain ticked softly against the back windows. The wedding photo in the hallway caught Malcolm's eye, both of them younger, Serena smiling wide, Malcolm wearing the same calm expression people often misunderstood. He wondered when her eyes had started measuring him instead of seeing him. Then her phone lit up on the counter. She turned it over quickly, but not before Malcolm caught the reflection in the dark kitchen window. Derek Langston. The same name from the message that had not yet meant anything clear. Serena picked up her wine glass and took a slow sip. "I am going upstairs," she said. "I have calls." Malcolm watched her leave, heels tapping against the hardwood, each step clean and practiced. When the bedroom door closed, not fully, just enough to dull the sound of her voice, Malcolm stood alone in the kitchen. He reached into his work bag, removed the cream-colored envelope, and placed it beside the invitation. The law firm's return address matched a building 3 blocks from the hotel on the invitation. The detail did not match. Or maybe, for the first time, it matched too well. Malcolm left the envelope unopened for another minute, not because he was afraid of what was inside, but because timing mattered. He stood at the island with the rain tapping against the windows and listened to the low murmur of Serena's voice upstairs, too muffled to become words. The house around him looked perfect from every angle: polished counters, white cabinets, framed art Serena had chosen because the designer said it warmed the room, fresh flowers in a glass vase near the sink. But perfection had a way of hiding cracks until the light hit them from the side. Malcolm picked up the foundation dinner invitation again and studied the sponsor list. Langston Capital Strategies sat near the middle in embossed silver, the kind of name that sounded larger than it had to. Derek Langston. The name had followed him through the evening now, from the phone reflection to the message preview to the invitation on the counter. Malcolm had never met the man, not formally. He had seen him once, 3 weeks earlier, standing beside Serena at a downtown hotel lobby after what she had called a networking reception. Derek had been tall, polished, smiling with the careful confidence of someone who expected doors to open before he touched them. His suit had fit too well. His watch had caught the chandelier light too brightly. His hand had rested near Serena's elbow, not touching long enough to accuse, but close enough to remember. Malcolm had parked at the curb that night because Serena had asked him to pick her up. She had come outside 5 minutes late, laughing at something Derek said, and the laugh had stopped the moment she saw the pickup. That was the first detail. The second came 2 days later, when a brochure for a luxury condo tower appeared in the recycling bin beneath a grocery receipt. Malcolm had unfolded it while taking out the trash, not searching, only noticing. A penthouse rendering. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Rooftop pool. Private elevator. A circle drawn around the words founder residence. Serena had told him she was helping a friend look at investment properties. Maybe that had been true. Maybe it had been the shape of truth used to cover something else. Malcolm set the invitation down and finally slid one finger under the uneven flap of the cream-colored envelope. He did not tear it wide. He opened it carefully, the way he opened anything that might need to be preserved. Inside was a single photocopied page, folded twice. Not divorce papers. Not yet. A consultation confirmation from the law offices of Braddock, Hensley and Vale. Serena Whitaker. Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Subject line: Asset separation and preliminary dissolution strategy. Malcolm read the line once, then again, letting each word settle without giving it more emotion than it deserved. Preliminary did not mean sudden. Strategy did not mean confusion. This had shape. This had been discussed before. He placed the page flat on the counter beneath his palm and looked toward the staircase. The bedroom door remained mostly closed. Her voice rose for half a second, soft and bright, then dropped again. Malcolm could not hear the words, but he heard the tone. It was the same tone she used around people she wanted to impress. He remembered another thing then, something small enough that most men might have let it pass. The previous Saturday morning, Serena had stood in their walk-in closet holding two ties against one of his shirts, then sighed and put them both back. "Never mind," she had said. "It is not that kind of room." He had thought she meant the charity dinner. Now he wondered whether she had meant him. His coffee from earlier sat cold near the sink. The dishwasher clicked into its drying cycle. Upstairs, Serena laughed once, quiet and quick, and Malcolm's eyes moved back to Derek's company name on the invitation. He took out his phone and searched the public business registry, nothing hidden, nothing improper, just the kind of information any man could read if he knew where to look. Langston Capital Strategies had an office address in South End, a suite number, a registration date barely 18 months old, and a mailing address that matched a shared executive workspace. Malcolm's thumb paused above the screen. Something about the public image and the paper trail did not line up. Then he saw one more entry, a financing notice filed 2 months earlier, connected to a commercial office lease. The secured party listed on the document was not Derek's bank. It was a subsidiary Malcolm recognized immediately, one buried 3 layers beneath a name Serena had never bothered to ask him about. Malcolm did not move for several seconds. The phone screen dimmed in his hand, but the name on the financing notice stayed sharp in his mind. He knew the subsidiary because he had approved its formation himself years earlier, not for attention, not for prestige, but because clean structures protected clean work. It sat quietly beneath a larger holding company, one more locked door in a building Serena had never cared to enter. And now Derek Langston's office lease was tied to it. Malcolm set the phone on the counter and looked at the ceiling, toward the bedroom where Serena's voice had gone soft again. He could not know what she was saying. He would not pretend he did. He only knew what he had seen, a law firm consultation, a sponsor list, Derek's name, a lease document, and Serena's sudden impatience with a life she had once called safe. The facts were still pieces. He did not force them into a picture too soon. That was how mistakes happened. Instead, he folded the consultation page along its original creases, slipped it back into the envelope, and placed the envelope inside the top drawer of the small desk near the kitchen. Then he washed the 2 dinner plates by hand, though the dishwasher had room. The warm water ran over his knuckles. The house smelled like lemon soap and rain. Above him, floorboards shifted. Serena was walking from the bedroom to the hallway, then back again, her voice low enough to disappear behind the walls. Malcolm dried the plates, put them away, and turned off the kitchen lights one by one until only the stove clock glowed green in the dark. He went upstairs at 10:17. The hallway was quiet except for the faint rush of the air conditioner. Their bedroom door was open 3 inches. He saw a strip of lamplight across the carpet and Serena's suitcase on the bench at the foot of the bed, half-zipped, a silk scarf hanging from one corner. She had said nothing about a trip. Something felt wrong. Malcolm stopped before the doorway, not hiding, just pausing the way a man pauses when the room ahead has changed without his permission. Serena's voice came through clearly then, not loud, but close enough. "Once I sign, I will finally be free of that small man." The words did not echo. They landed. Malcolm felt them in the center of his chest, not as a wound at first, but as confirmation. Small man. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had changed her tire in the rain outside Columbia, built the shelves in her study, held her mother's hospital bag for 6 hours, signed checks for charities she liked without asking for his name on the donor wall. Small. He heard Derek's voice on the other end, too faint to make out, then Serena again, softer now. "No, he will not fight it. Malcolm does not know how to fight for anything big." That was the first lie that truly mattered. Malcolm stepped back from the door. He did not push it open. He did not ask who she was talking to. He did not give her the satisfaction of seeing the sentence hit its mark. He walked down the hall to the guest bathroom, closed the door gently, and stood beneath the white overhead light, breathing once, twice, until the heat in his chest became something colder and more useful. On the counter sat one of Serena's gold earrings beside a folded hand towel. Domestic things. Ordinary things. The kind of things that made betrayal feel almost impossible until it was sitting in the house with you. Malcolm took out his phone and opened a contact he rarely used from home. Elliot Grant answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. Malcolm? Malcolm looked at himself in the mirror. Same plain t-shirt. Same tired eyes. Same man Serena believed she had measured correctly. I need you to prepare the cleanest version, Malcolm said. Voluntary. Transparent. No pressure, no ambiguity. She gets exactly what the law says she gets and not 1 inch more. Elliot was quiet for half a beat. Has something happened? Malcolm listened to the floorboards creak beyond the bathroom door. Serena laughed again somewhere down the hall, light and certain, as if the future had already signed itself over to her. Yes, Malcolm said. But we are not moving emotionally. We are moving correctly. He ended the call and stayed there a moment longer, watching the man in the mirror become still. By morning, the first draft would exist. By Friday, Serena would believe she was being handed freedom. And Malcolm would learn whether she respected him enough to read before she signed. By sunrise, Malcolm had already made coffee, taken the trash to the curb, and stood for 3 full minutes in the driveway while the neighborhood woke around him. A school bus hissed at the corner. A sprinkler ticked across someone's lawn. Serena's upstairs window stayed dark, though her car was still in the garage and the suitcase was no longer on the bedroom bench when he passed by the open door. He did not ask where it had gone. Questions asked too early gave people time to decorate the truth. At 7:36, Elliot Grant called while Malcolm was driving toward the freight yard, the morning sun flashing between office buildings along Interstate 77. I have the framework, Elliot said. It is clean. Simple property division. Standard disclosures. Nothing hidden in the language. If she signs it voluntarily, there will be no reasonable claim that she did not understand the document. Malcolm kept both hands on the wheel. The pickup smelled faintly of black coffee and rain-damp canvas from his jacket. No tricks, he said. No traps. There are no tricks, Elliot replied. Only choices written clearly. That mattered to Malcolm. He did not want revenge that required him to become someone Serena could point to and blame. He wanted the truth to stand in the room without needing help. At the yard, the day moved with its usual rhythm, horns backing up, dock plates slamming down, radios crackling across the lot. Malcolm walked through it all with a clipboard in one hand and a calm face that gave nothing away. But every ordinary sound seemed sharper now. The printer in the office. The ring of the front desk phone. The laugh of 2 drivers outside the vending machine. Life continuing, unaware that a marriage could be ending quietly behind a man's eyes while he approved fuel advances and corrected delivery times. By noon, a secure envelope from Elliot arrived by courier. Malcolm signed for it at the front desk. Dale looked up from a routing spreadsheet and raised his eyebrows. Something important. Malcolm slid the envelope under his arm. Just paperwork. That was true enough. In his office, he closed the blinds halfway and opened the package. The divorce agreement was exactly what he had asked for: plain language, numbered pages, disclosure acknowledgments, voluntary signature lines, no cruelty dressed up as legal strategy. The house would be handled fairly. Joint accounts would be divided according to traceable contribution. Personal property would remain personal property. Anything established before the marriage, held separately, or protected through existing structures was identified only as separate, not displayed, not explained, not used as bait. Serena would see enough to understand the agreement if she read it. She would not see enough to understand him. Malcolm turned each page slowly. His name looked strange beside hers in a document built for separation. Malcolm Whitaker. Serena Whitaker. 12 years reduced to clauses, initials, dates, and signature blocks. He thought of the apartment above the barber shop again, of Serena eating takeout on the floor because they had not bought a table yet, of her laughing when rain leaked through the window and he caught it in a mixing bowl. He let the memory pass without grabbing it. The woman in that memory had not stood behind a bedroom door and called him small. At 3:15, his phone buzzed with a message from Serena. Dinner tonight. 7. Be home. Malcolm read it once and set the phone down. The command in it was almost familiar now. At 4:02, Naomi Brooks called, her voice composed, professional, carrying the quiet pressure of rooms Serena had never seen. The board wants confirmation on Friday's appearance, she said. Press is asking whether you will attend in person. Malcolm looked through the blinds at the cracked asphalt of the freight yard, at Andre laughing beside a trailer, at the dented blue pickup parked near the fence. Not yet, he said. Keep everything quiet until I tell you. Understood. A pause. And the Langston matter? Malcolm's eyes lowered to Derek's financing notice, now clipped beneath the top sheet in a private folder. He had not asked Naomi to dig. He had only asked her to verify what was already public and what their own company records were allowed to show him. Do nothing, he said. Let him believe whatever he believes. When he arrived home that evening, Serena had changed the house again. Candles burned on the dining table. The marble island was clear except for 2 wine glasses and a vase of white roses. She had dressed carefully, not for grief, not for reconciliation, but for control. Malcolm could feel it the moment he stepped inside. The air smelled of vanilla wax and her expensive perfume. She looked at the envelope in his hand, then at his face. What is that? She asked. Malcolm placed it on the counter between them. His voice was even. What you said you wanted. Serena stared at the envelope, and for the first time all evening, her expression lost its polish for half a second. Then the corner of her mouth lifted, small and certain. Malcolm noticed that too. Serena kept her eyes on the envelope as if it had arrived late to a meeting she had already decided to win. Malcolm watched the shift in her face, the brief surprise smoothing into confidence, the way her shoulders settled once she understood the shape of the moment. She did not ask whether he was all right. She did not ask why he had prepared it first. She only looked from the envelope to him, then gave a quiet breath that almost became a laugh. You had papers drawn up, she said. I did. Malcolm removed his jacket and placed it over the back of the dining chair. The house was too warm from the candles, and the vanilla scent sat heavily over the smell of roasted chicken Serena had ordered from somewhere expensive and arranged on their plates as if she had cooked it herself. He noticed the takeout container tucked too far down in the trash beneath a layer of paper towels. He noticed the untouched serving spoon beside the platter. He noticed everything, because noticing was safer than feeling too early. Serena walked to the island and touched the corner of the envelope with one finger. Her nails were painted a deep red, glossy under the pendant lights. I did not think you had it in you, she said. Malcolm pulled out the chair across from her but did not sit yet. What did you think I had in me? She smiled, and for a second he saw the woman who used to tease him gently in the apartment above the barber shop, back when her ambition still sounded like hope instead of hunger. Then the softness passed. Do you really want honesty tonight? She asked. Malcolm looked at the wedding photo still hanging in the hallway, visible from where he stood. 12 years in a frame. A white dress. His dark suit. Her hand over his heart. The picture had survived 3 moves, 2 remodels, and every argument they had ever stepped around instead of through. Yes, he said. I do. Serena picked up her wine glass and moved to the dining table, the silk of her blouse catching the light. "I think you are comfortable," she said. "And I think comfort can look like character when people do not know the difference." Malcolm sat then, slowly. The words were clean, rehearsed enough to sound spontaneous. "Go on." She took that as permission, maybe even weakness. "You are kind. You are steady. You are dependable." "But Malcolm, dependable is not the same as powerful. I have spent years standing beside you in rooms where I had to explain what you do, and every time I heard myself say freight, trucks, local accounts, I could feel people lowering their expectations of me." The knife beside Malcolm's plate reflected a thin line of candlelight. He rested his hands on either side of the plate and let her speak. He did not correct the lie inside her embarrassment. He did not tell her which of those rooms he had owned through companies she had never asked about. "Not tonight. Not yet." "So this is about rooms," he said. "It is about my life," Serena replied quickly. "It is about not shrinking to fit a man who stopped reaching." Malcolm heard the click of her phone vibrating against the marble island behind them. Once. Then again. She did not turn around, but her eyes moved slightly toward the sound. He saw it. Derek waiting somewhere outside this conversation, present without being in the room. The dinner between them cooled. Rain whispered against the windows. Somewhere in the laundry room, the dryer turned a zipper against the metal drum again and again, a small hard sound marking time. Malcolm took the envelope and slid it across the table, not dramatically, not angrily, just far enough that it stopped beside her wine glass. "Then read it," he said. Serena looked down at it, then back at him. "You always make things heavier than they need to be. Read it anyway." Her smile sharpened. "Why? So you can feel like this was a negotiation?" Malcolm held her gaze. He thought about the suitcase that had disappeared, the consultation page, Derek's lease, the sentence behind the bedroom door, the small man she believed she was leaving. "No," he said. "So you understand what you are choosing." For the first time, irritation flashed through her polished calm. She opened the envelope, pulled out the pages, and flipped past the first sheet too quickly. Malcolm watched the paper move through her hands. He saw her skip the disclosure acknowledgement. He saw her ignore the numbered clauses. He saw her search only for the places marked with yellow tabs, as if the rest of their life together was just empty space between signatures. She reached for the pen near the roses, then paused with its tip hovering above the page. Her phone buzzed one more time behind them, and this time the screen lit bright enough to reflect Derek Langston's name in the dark kitchen window. Serena's eyes flicked to the window reflection before she could stop them. Malcolm saw it, and he saw the tiny change that followed, the quick tightening at the corner of her mouth, the impatience returning to her fingers. Derek's name hovered backward in the glass for 1 second, bright and ghost-like above the dark outline of the kitchen, then the phone went black again. Serena lowered the pen as if nothing had happened. "You know," she said, almost softly, "this is exactly why we never worked." Malcolm did not answer. He watched the pen touch the first yellow tab. Her signature moved quickly, confident and careless, the S long and sharp, the rest of her name rushing after it like she was trying to outrun the room. The sound of the pen across paper was small, but Malcolm heard every stroke. He heard the dryer turning in the laundry room. He heard rain against the windows. He heard the faint buzz of the refrigerator, the settling of the house, the quiet collapse of something that had taken 12 years to build. Serena flipped to the next tab without reading the paragraph above it. "You always needed things to be measured," she said. "Every bill, every repair, every decision. You made life feel like a checklist." She signed again. Malcolm's eyes stayed on the page. Disclosure acknowledged. Voluntary agreement. Separate property confirmed. Her initials landed beside each line like stones dropped into water. "Maybe I wanted someone who could walk into a room and make people wonder who he was," she continued, smiling now, gaining momentum from his silence. Not someone people forgot the second he left. Malcolm felt the sentence pass through him and settle somewhere old. He thought of his father, coming home with tired hands and still standing tall at the kitchen sink. He thought of his mother pressing work uniforms with care because dignity, she used to say, did not depend on who noticed. He thought of all the rooms Serena had wanted to enter, all the doors she thought he could not open, and the strange mercy of not correcting her before this moment. She laughed then. Not loud. Not wild. A short, bright, relieved laugh, the kind a person gives when they believe the hard part is over and the future has finally agreed with them. I hope you find someone simple, Malcolm, she said, turning another page. Someone who wants this. Her hand lifted slightly, gesturing at the kitchen, the candles, the quiet street beyond the windows, the life she had once chosen and now wanted to describe as beneath her. Because I cannot keep pretending this is enough. Malcolm folded his hands on the table. Do you want to take time with the rest of it? He asked. Serena looked at him as though he had offered her a coat in July. Do not do that. Do what? Act noble. It does not fit tonight. The pen moved again. Another signature. Another initial. She was almost finished. Malcolm noticed a small smudge of ink near her thumb. He noticed the wine untouched beside her elbow. He noticed the way she kept glancing toward the phone, waiting for the world outside the kitchen to confirm she had made the right choice. He did not rush her. He did not warn her again. There were moments in life when a person stood at an open door and mistook it for a wall. Serena had the document in front of her. The clauses were written in plain English. The choices were hers. On the final page, she paused only long enough to tilt her head and look at him with something close to pity. Take care of yourself, Malcolm, she said. Then she signed her name one last time and slid the papers across the table with 2 fingers, smiling as if she had just handed him a receipt for something worthless. Malcolm looked at the final signature. The ink shone wet for a second under the candlelight, then began to dry. He picked up the stack, aligned the corners, and placed it back inside the envelope. His movements were slow, almost gentle. Serena leaned back in her chair, free already in her own mind. Her phone lit up again behind her, and this time, before she could reach it, a new message preview appeared beneath Derek Langston's name. I am outside. Did he sign away the house too? Malcolm read it in the window reflection. He stayed silent. Malcolm read the message twice in the dark glass without turning his head. I am outside. Did he sign away the house too? The words did not surprise him as much as they organized the room. The candles, the untouched wine, Serena's careful blouse, the dinner she had not cooked, the phone she kept watching, all of it settled into place with a quiet, almost mechanical click. Derek Langston was not a theory anymore. He was outside their house, close enough to see the porch light, confident enough to ask about the property before the ink had fully dried. Malcolm slid the sealed envelope closer to his side of the table. Serena reached for her phone too quickly, then stopped when she realized he had seen the movement. It is late, she said, her voice smoother than her hand. You should probably go to a hotel tonight. It would be cleaner. Malcolm looked at her for a long moment. Not angry. Not pleading. Just looking. The kitchen light reflected in her bracelet, the same bracelet that had appeared without explanation 2 weeks earlier. Cleaner, he repeated. Serena lifted her chin. Do not make this dramatic. Outside, tires whispered against the wet curb. Malcolm heard them because the house had gone too quiet around the sound. He turned his eyes toward the front window. Through the rain-streaked glass, beyond the pale reflection of the dining room, he saw the outline of a black luxury sedan idling 2 houses down, headlights low, windshield shining under the street lamp. He did not need to see Derek's face to understand the timing. He only needed the car, the message, and Serena's sudden interest in where Malcolm would sleep. Then his own phone vibrated on the table. Serena's eyes dropped to it before he picked it up. The screen showed Naomi Brooks. Malcolm let it ring once, not for effect, but because he was measuring the moment. When he answered, his voice changed by half a degree, not louder, not colder, just stripped of the softness Serena had mistaken for the whole man. "Whitaker," he said. On the other end, Naomi's voice came through crisp and controlled. "The board is ready when you are. Elliot is also on standby. The press embargo remains sealed, but we need your confirmation before midnight." Serena's face shifted. It was small, almost nothing, but Malcolm saw it. The first crack in certainty. Her eyes moved from his phone to his face, as if she had heard a language she did not expect him to speak fluently. "Tell them 10 minutes, Malcolm said. And send Elliot the executed pages." "Yes, sir," Naomi replied. "Do you want the South End file included?" Malcolm watched Serena's fingers tighten around the stem of her wine glass. South End. Derek's office district. The words hung in the kitchen like a match held near paper. "Not yet," Malcolm said. "Only confirm receipt." He ended the call and placed the phone face down. Serena's mouth opened slightly, then closed. She looked toward the hallway, toward the front of the house, toward the life she thought she had just arranged. "Who was that?" she asked. Malcolm picked up the envelope. "Work." A laugh escaped her, but it was thinner now. "Your freight yard has a board." Malcolm stood, and the chair legs made a soft sound against the floor. He walked to the small desk near the kitchen, removed a second folder from the drawer, and placed Serena's signed agreement inside it. He did not explain the folder. He did not explain Naomi. He did not explain why Elliot Grant was waiting after hours or why the word embargo had entered their kitchen at 9:38 on a rainy Tuesday night. Not yet. The point was not to perform power. The point was to let truth arrive in the correct order. Serena's phone buzzed again, and this time she grabbed it before the reflection could betray her. Malcolm watched her read the screen. Whatever Derek had sent made her swallow once. "Malcolm," she said, and for the first time all night, his name did not sound like a dismissal. He looked past her, through the front window, where the black sedan's headlights dimmed and then brightened again. Then another pair of headlights turned onto the cul-de-sac, slow and silent, followed by a second vehicle behind it. Both were black sport utility vehicles, clean, polished, and unfamiliar to this quiet street. Malcolm's phone vibrated once more with a message from Naomi: "Security has arrived. Elliot is 2 minutes out." Serena saw only the glow on his screen. She did not see the words, but she saw Malcolm's expression remain perfectly still. Outside, the first black sport utility vehicle stopped directly in front of the house, and the man in Derek Langston's sedan turned his headlights off. The first black sport utility vehicle stopped so smoothly it seemed to belong to a different kind of street. No music, no raised voices, no drama, only the quiet sound of tires settling against wet pavement and doors opening with practiced calm. Malcolm stood near the kitchen desk with Serena's signed papers in one hand and his phone in the other, watching through the front window as two men in dark suits stepped out beneath the porch light. They did not look toward Derek's sedan at first. They looked at the house, then at Malcolm, visible through the glass, and waited. That was what made Serena go still. Not the vehicles. Not the suits. The waiting. People who came for Malcolm usually knocked loudly, called him Mal, asked about invoices, deliveries, favors, repairs. These men stood as if they had been given instructions and trusted him to decide the next move. Serena rose from her chair slowly. "Why are they here?" she asked. Malcolm did not answer right away. He watched Derek's sedan 2 houses down. The headlights were off now, but the engine still breathed faintly in the rain, exhaust curling behind the rear bumper. Through the windshield glare, Malcolm could make out a silhouette in the driver's seat. The figure did not move with the easy confidence of a man waiting for another man to be thrown out of his own house. He sat rigidly, shoulders high, phone close to his face. Then the second sport utility vehicle pulled in behind the first, and Derek's driver's side door opened halfway before stopping. Malcolm saw the pause. He saw recognition before Serena did. The man outside had seen something on those vehicles, something small enough that Serena missed it, the discreet silver emblem near the rear plate, the mark used by Whitaker Holdings on executive transport and private security contracts. It was not printed large. It did not need to be. Derek knew it anyway. Serena stepped closer to the window, her wine glass still in her hand though she seemed to have forgotten it. "Is this some kind of stunt?" she said, but her voice had lost the smooth edge it carried at the table. Malcolm opened the front door before she could ask again. The rain smelled clean and cold. The porch light caught the shoulders of his plain shirt, the wet brick steps, the dark shine of the vehicles at the curb. The first man under the porch gave a respectful nod. "Mr. Whitaker." Serena's breath changed behind him. Malcolm heard it. For 12 years, people had called him Malcolm or Mal in front of her, sometimes Mr. Whitaker at banks and doctors' offices, never like that. Never with that weight. "Elliot is 1 minute out," the man said. "Miss Brooks asked us to secure the documents and wait for your instruction." "Inside," Malcolm said. The man entered with another suited associate, neither rushing nor looking around the house more than necessary. Their shoes made almost no sound on the foyer floor. Serena backed away without meaning to. Malcolm could tell by the quick correction in her posture, the embarrassed lift of her chin after her body moved first. Outside, Derek had stepped fully out of his sedan. Rain darkened the shoulders of his expensive coat. He was looking at Malcolm now, not at Serena. The expression was difficult to read from the doorway, but Malcolm saw enough. The man was calculating distance, timing, consequence. Malcolm had seen that look before across conference tables when men realized the quiet partner in the room was not a partner at all, but the person who owned the table. Serena followed Malcolm's gaze and finally saw Derek standing there. For the first time that night, she did not call out to him. A third set of headlights swept across the cul-de-sac, and a dark sedan pulled in behind the sport utility vehicles. Elliot Grant stepped out carrying a slim leather folio, no umbrella, no hurry, rain gathering on the shoulders of his charcoal overcoat. He was a tall, gray-haired black man with the calm face of someone who had spent decades making wealthy people understand consequences in private rooms. He nodded once to Malcolm, then looked briefly at Serena with professional courtesy and nothing more. "Mr. Whitaker," Elliot said. "I have the receipt packet and the corporate seal confirmation you requested." Serena's eyes moved from Elliot to Malcolm. "Corporate seal," she repeated. Malcolm did not explain. Elliot stepped inside, opened the folio on the entry table, and withdrew a document bearing the Whitaker Holdings letterhead. Serena saw the name before Malcolm said anything. So did Derek, from the porch steps where he had stopped beneath the rain, his face now pale beneath the streetlight. Malcolm watched Derek's eyes drop to the page, then lift back to him. There it was. The recognition. The fear of a man who had just realized the husband he had dismissed was tied to the company holding his office lease, his financing line, and maybe the polished version of himself he had sold to Serena. Serena whispered, "Malcolm, what is Whitaker Holdings?" Malcolm looked at the signed envelope in his hand, then at Derek standing silent in the rain. The answer was now close enough to touch, but not yet fully spoken. Serena stared at the letterhead as if the name might rearrange itself into something smaller if she looked long enough. Whitaker Holdings sat at the top of the page in dark blue ink, clean and unadorned, the kind of branding that did not need gold edges or loud lettering to announce weight. Malcolm watched her eyes move over it, then toward Derek, then back to Elliot Grant's calm hands as he removed another document from the folio. "This is the receipt packet for the executed agreement," Elliot said, placing the papers on the entry table with the precision of a man who had done this in rooms far colder than a suburban foyer. "It confirms voluntary signature, receipt of disclosures, and acknowledgement of separate property categories as provided in the document." Serena blinked. "I did not receive full disclosures." Malcolm looked at the signed pages in the envelope. He remembered the way she had flipped past them, searching for yellow tabs, smiling as she ignored the paragraphs that asked her to slow down. Elliot turned one page and pointed, not accusingly, simply accurately. You initialed here, here, and here. The language is plain. You were advised in writing to review with independent counsel before signing. You were also given the option to defer execution. Serena's fingers tightened around her wine glass until Malcolm noticed the skin pale at her knuckles. He stepped closer, not to comfort her, not to corner her, only to see the paper for himself. The house had gone silent except for the rain dripping from Elliot's coat onto the floor mat and the soft radio murmur from one of the vehicles outside. Derek stood under the porch light now, too still, his expensive coat darkening in the rain. He had not come in. That told Malcolm almost as much as the financing notice had. Serena looked past Elliot. Derek, she called, and the name sounded different in the foyer than it had on her phone. Less like a secret. More like evidence. Derek took one step toward the doorway, then stopped when one of the suited men shifted just enough to make the threshold feel official without being threatening. No one touched him. No one raised a voice. The boundary was understood. Serena, Derek said, but Malcolm heard the caution in it. Elliot glanced at Malcolm, then opened the next page. For clarity, Mrs. Whitaker, the property division applies only to marital assets identified in the agreement. The entities listed as separate holdings were formed, funded, or protected through structures predating the marriage or maintained outside commingled accounts. Serena turned back sharply. Entities? Malcolm watched the word hit her. It was not the money yet. It was the possibility that there had been a map under her feet the whole time and she had never asked where the roads went. Elliot did not embellish. Several. Serena looked at Malcolm then, really looked at him, not at his shirt, not at his work boots, not at the plain truck beyond the driveway, but at his face as if trying to find the man who matched the documents. You never told me, she said. Malcolm felt the old ache move through him, but it no longer controlled the room. You never asked what I was building, he said. You asked why it was not prettier. The sentence landed quietly. Serena's mouth opened, then closed. Outside, Derek checked his phone, and Malcolm saw the screen light up against the rain. A second later, Malcolm's own phone vibrated. Naomi. He read the message without lifting it high enough for Serena to see. South End file confirmed. Langston lease held by Whitaker Commercial through subsidiary. Payment irregularities documented. Malcolm turned the phone face down again. He did not need to use it yet. Elliot continued, the signed agreement does not transfer ownership of any protected business interest, trust-held asset, private equity position, commercial property portfolio, or corporate subsidiary. It also confirms that neither party is relying on verbal assumptions not contained in the document. Serena's face changed with each category. Business interest. Trust-held asset. Commercial property. Subsidiary. Words she had dismissed as boring when Malcolm was the one quietly living them. How much, she whispered. Elliot did not answer. That was not his place. Malcolm looked through the open door at Derek, whose confidence had drained into the wet porch boards beneath him. The man Serena had believed understood scale was standing outside a house owned in part through structures he did not control, waiting for permission to step into a conversation already larger than him. Serena set the wine glass down too hard on the entry table, and the sound cracked through the foyer. Malcolm, how much? This time, Malcolm looked at her. He thought of the diner, the freight yard, the old pickup, the years of being measured and found lacking by someone standing inches from an empire she could not see. Enough, he said. Elliot slid one final page forward. At the bottom was Serena's signature, fresh and dark. Beside it, the clause she had initialed without reading confirmed that she had declined further review. Serena saw it. Malcolm saw the exact moment she understood that her laughter had not ended the marriage. It had locked the door behind her. Serena's hand hovered over the clause as if touching it might change what it said. The fresh ink of her initials sat beside the sentence with cruel simplicity, clean, legal, and final. Malcolm watched her read it once, then again, watched the confidence drain from her face in slow degrees. It did not happen all at once. First the smile disappeared. Then the color beneath her makeup faded. Then her eyes moved back through the pages, searching for a mistake, a loophole, a softer version of what she had done. There was none. Elliot stood quietly beside the entry table, giving the silence room to do its work. The men near the door remained still. Outside, rain traced silver lines across the black sport utility vehicles, and Derek Langston stood beneath the porch light with his phone in one hand and his future no longer looking as polished as it had from a distance. Serena turned toward him. "Derek," she said again, sharper this time, needing him to step forward, to explain, to restore the version of the night she had planned. Derek looked past her at Malcolm. He did not look like a man arriving to claim a victory. He looked like a man who had walked into the wrong building and realized too late that the owner was standing in front of him. "I think I should go," Derek said. Serena's head snapped back slightly. "Go." Malcolm saw the word wound her more than Derek intended. It confirmed something she had not wanted to see. Derek had come for the house, the settlement, the image of Serena stepping out of a small marriage into something larger. Now that the room had turned larger than him, he wanted distance. No one stopped him. No one needed to. He backed off the porch, pulling his coat tighter against the rain, and walked quickly toward his sedan. Serena watched him through the open doorway until his taillights slid away from the curb and disappeared around the corner. The sound of the engine faded, leaving only rain and the soft hum of the foyer lights. She turned back to Malcolm slowly. "I did not know," she said. Malcolm believed that part. She had not known the scale. She had not known the names under the companies, the properties behind the addresses, the quiet reach of the man whose boots she had looked down on that evening. But not knowing was not innocence. It was the result of never being curious about anything that did not glitter. "You knew enough," he said. Serena swallowed. "I was angry." Malcolm looked at the table where the wine glass had left a red crescent near the document packet. "You were laughing." The words were not loud, and that made them heavier. Serena's eyes filled, but Malcolm did not move toward her. For years, he had moved toward her first. When she was disappointed, when she was embarrassed, when she needed someone to carry the weight she did not want to name. Tonight he let her stand with it. "We can slow this down," she said. "We can talk. Malcolm, please, we can talk about what this really means." Elliot's gaze shifted briefly to Malcolm, waiting, but Malcolm did not need legal advice for the sentence forming in him. "We talked for 12 years, he said. "You just stopped listening when you decided I was not impressive enough to hear." Serena shook her head, tears moving now, her voice breaking into something smaller. "I made a mistake." Malcolm looked at the signed agreement, then at the doorway where Derek had stood, then at the wedding photograph visible down the hall. The young man in that frame had believed love meant being patient long enough for someone to see your heart. The man in the foyer understood that patience without boundaries could become permission for someone to keep missing it. "You did not lose my money, Serena," he said. "You lost me before you ever signed." She covered her mouth with one hand, and for the first time that night, she had no polished answer. Malcolm picked up the packet and handed it to Elliot. "File it in the morning." Elliot nodded once. "Yes, sir." Serena took a step toward Malcolm, then stopped when he stepped back, not harshly, not dramatically, only enough to make the boundary clear. His phone buzzed again. Naomi's message appeared on the screen, "Press confirmation requested. Profile publishes at 8 in the morning." Malcolm read it, locked the phone, and looked toward the rain-dark street beyond the open door. The world Serena had wanted was about to learn his name, but in that foyer, with candles burning low behind him and the signed papers leaving her reach, Malcolm felt only the quiet weight of a door closing exactly where it should. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the street still shone under a thin silver skin of water. Malcolm left before sunrise with one small overnight bag in his hand, the same canvas bag he used for short business trips Serena had always assumed were vendor meetings or regional freight inspections. The candles from the night before had burned down into uneven pools of wax. The wine glass still sat on the entry table beside the faint red crescent it had left behind. The house looked staged after a storm, beautiful from a distance and hollow up close. Serena stood halfway down the staircase in the same silk blouse, her hair looser now, her face tired in the pale light coming through the foyer windows. She had not slept, Malcolm could tell. Neither had he, not really. But the exhaustion in him was clean. It did not ask for an argument. It did not ask to be understood by someone who had waited until the numbers changed before the man mattered. Elliot had left with the signed packet just after midnight. The security vehicles had remained outside until Malcolm asked them to go. Derek had not called again, at least not on any phone Malcolm could see, and Serena had not said his name after the taillights disappeared. Now the house was quiet except for the refrigerator humming in the kitchen and the soft click of Malcolm's bag zipper as he closed it near the front door. Serena watched him from the stairs. "Where are you going?" she asked. Malcolm looked at the wedding photograph in the hallway one last time. He did not hate it. That surprised him. The people in the frame had been real for that moment, even if they had not survived what came after. "Uptown," he said. "There is a board meeting." She gave a small, broken laugh, not because anything was funny, but because the words still did not fit the man she had chosen not to see. "A board meeting," she repeated. Malcolm picked up his keys. Not the keys to the pickup. A different set, handed to him quietly by one of the men the night before. Outside, a black sport utility vehicle waited at the curb, its paint reflecting the soft gray of morning. No crowd. No spectacle. Just a driver standing beside the open rear door, respectful and still. Serena came down 2 more steps. "Why did you let me think you were ordinary?" Malcolm turned back then. He looked at her carefully, not cruelly, not tenderly, but with the full attention he had once given to every part of their life. "I did not let you think anything," he said. "I lived the way I believed a man should live. You decided ordinary meant worthless." The sentence stayed between them. Serena gripped the stair rail, her eyes shining, but Malcolm had no room left inside him for rescue. He stepped out into the cool morning air. The neighborhood smelled of wet grass and clean pavement. A newspaper lay at the end of the driveway, wrapped in plastic, the headline not yet visible from where he stood. His phone vibrated as he reached the vehicle. Naomi Brooks had sent a link with one sentence beneath it, "The profile is live." Malcolm did not open it immediately. He already knew what the world was about to learn. He only looked back once, through the open front door, where Serena stood framed by the house she had thought was the prize. Behind her, the television in the living room flickered to life on its timed morning setting. Financial news filled the silent room, and a photograph of Malcolm appeared on the screen above a breaking segment about Whitaker Holdings, port acquisitions, commercial real estate, private equity, and the man behind one of the most quietly powerful black-owned business empires in the country. Serena turned toward the screen. Malcolm saw her shoulders go still. The driver waited. Malcolm stepped into the vehicle, and as the door closed, he felt the strange quiet of a life returning to its rightful owner. The sport utility vehicle pulled away from the curb, passing the blue pickup still parked in the driveway like an old witness to everything she had misunderstood. Serena remained in the doorway, smaller now against the pale brick and tall windows, watching the man she had laughed at leave without raising his voice, without asking for anything back, without needing the world to clap for him. By the time Malcolm reached the glass tower downtown, the sun had broken through the clouds and lit the city in clean gold. In the lobby, polished floors reflected his steps. Executives turned as he passed. Security nodded. Naomi Brooks stood near the private elevator with a tablet in one hand and the calm expression of someone who had always known exactly who he was. "Good morning, Mr. Whitaker," she said. Malcolm paused before the elevator doors opened. For the first time in 12 years, no part of him felt the need to be smaller for someone else's comfort. He thought of the diner, the freight yard, his parents, the rain on the kitchen windows, and Serena's final signature drying under candlelight. Then he stepped inside. Some people show you who they are when they think you have nothing. And sometimes the quietest revenge is